Ladies and gentlemen, every single person who watches The Boys has the same thought. Usually around by the end of season 1, you see Vought Tower, you see the cameras everywhere, all the handlers, the PR people, you just see that world. And one word shows up in your head. That word is panopticon. And it feels so good. You feel like you cracked the show. Maybe you took one philosophy class. Maybe you just know that word from somewhere. It really doesn't matter. You said it. You felt smart. You moved on with your life and enjoyed the rest of The Boys. Here's the problem though. That reading is wrong. And the show doesn't just fail to support that reading. The show spends 5 seasons actively disproving it. On purpose. And the thing is actually saying it's so much fucking darker. So that's what we're doing today. Give me about 20 minutes, there's a French guy, another French guy, and by the end, we're gonna use both of those French guys to make your phone and your life and all of The Boys and every single piece of technology a crime scene. First and foremost, what is a panopticon? Because most people using the word couldn't probably tell you what a panopticon really is, and the whole video kind of depends on you knowing and understanding it. We have an English philosopher, Jeremy Bentham. He designs a prison. It's this circle of cells around one guard tower in the middle. Every cell is lit from behind, so every prisoner is a clear silhouette. All day, 24/7, all night, And the guard tower has shutters. So from the inside, you can never tell if a guard is actually in that guard tower in the middle looking at you or not. And that's the whole trick of the panopticon. That's the whole entire invention. Because if you can't tell when you're being watched, you kind of act like you're being watched, all the time. And a person who acts like they're being watched, they start controlling themselves in ways that they wouldn't otherwise. You don't even need a guard in the tower anymore. The prisoner basically becomes his own guard. He does the watching for free inside his own head, forever. Bentham loved this. He wanted panopticon schools, panopticon hospitals, factories. He thought he'd invented a machine so good and so flawless that automatically makes people behave. 200 years after Bentham, French guy number 1 comes in, Michel Foucault. And Foucault looks at this little prison design and says something really massive. He says this isn't a prison. This is how all modern power basically works. His argument is that power used to be a spectacle. So a king proves he's in charge by executing someone in the town square. Big, loud, public, violent, but that's a bad system. Because crowds are unpredictable and dead rebels eventually become these martyrs and heroes. So power here gets smarter. It becomes quiet. Instead of destroying your body or the enemy in public, it corrects you in private, in school, in work, in the military, with timetables, grades, performance analyses, all these micro low-level evaluations. By doing that, it basically turns the person against themselves. People just keep monitoring themselves. People behave even when the room is empty. You take the guard tower and you install it inside the person's mind. And here's the line from Foucault that should genuinely bother you. He says, the thing doing the watching inside you, that voice that says behave, someone is watching, you think that's your conscience, your character, you think that's you. But Foucault says no. He says that's put in there. That's the prison. It just runs inside your own head now. It's installed in your brain. But, and this is the part I need you to hold on to for the whole rest of the video, that machine has one and only one job. It makes people behave. That is the entire point of a panopticon. And watching exists to produce good behavior. Okay, let's be honest. Look, at first glance, everything maps perfectly, right? We have the cells, which are basically like the brandings and shit. The lights that are visible are the live stream and cameras and the press. The guard tower with the shutters. A rating dashboard that, Starlight has and Homelander has and everyone has. It just fits, frame for frame. So you say, panopticon. You feel smart. Video's over. Except remember the one job. The panopticon exists to make people behave. Look at Homelander, for example. The most watched human being who has ever existed, if we can call him a human. There are cameras on him since his literal birth. If surveillance makes people behave, this man should be the best behaved creature on the planet. He is not, though. He lasers through people, on a whim, in public, and doesn't give a rat's ass if someone's dead. So something is broken. The most surveilled man is the least controlled man alive. Here we have a situation. See, either Foucault was stupid and wrong, I mean, he wasn't, or Vought is not running the machine everyone think it is running. So Vought is not running the panopticon. And figuring out which one it is, that's the actual video. Everything up to now, you already probably knew. Here's where we go somewhere new. My friends, our way in is to notice that the whole show is a running experiment. It's the same machine, which is total surveillance, on two different people. And it gets two opposite results. And the reason why is the smartest and best thing in the show. So let's look at person one, Annie January, Starlight. The most important fact about Starlight is that she showed up already having a conscience. She was raised evangelical. She was raised in pageants. There's always that voice that says, be good, be pure. God is watching. So by the time Vought gets to her, the guard tower is already installed in her head. Her mom built it. A religion built it. Vought doesn't have to make Starlight watch herself. She's been watching herself since she was 4 or 5, or, ever since she gained consciousness. What I'd like to point out here is we gotta see how fast the machine grabs her. For example, the costume scene, right? They put her in a new suit that is basically a lingerie. And the horror of that scene isn't like the creepy people or like, ooh, you're a sellout. It's what happens inside her brain. She's humiliated. She's furious, but she still wears the costume. She smiles and she learns to hide what she feels and just sells her new identity. And that is the machine working perfectly. That is a panopticon doing its exact job. It found a part of Starlight that already wanted to be good, and it hijacked it. It just swapped the goal from be good for God to be good for the brand, which is your new God. It's basically the same voice in her head, but there's a new boss, basically. Even when she rebels, and she rebels a lot, look at how she doesn't disappear. She doesn't go off grid. She grabs a camera and confesses on live TV. She takes the exact machine built to watch her, and she points it back at Vought, and it's like, let's watch them. That's not escaping the system. That's basically just a prisoner who realized the tower windows work both ways. She's still playing the game. She's just playing it better. So run total surveillance on someone with a conscience and you get Starlight. The machine works. It captures her. It shrinks her. It turns her into her own warden. Textbook Foucault. Done. But what happens when you run the exact same machine on someone who has no conscience for it to grab onto? That is the story of Homelander. And here's his whole tragedy in one fact. He's the most surveilled person ever, as I mentioned. And he was raised entirely by a system. No parents, no home, literally in a lab, scientists behind glass watching him, testing him from day one. So by every rule we just built, the lab should have produced the most obedient man alive. It produced the opposite though. Why? Because the panopticon can only grab a conscience that's already there. It doesn't build a conscience for a person. It hijacks one. See, Starlight came preloaded with the notion of being good, so the machine had something to latch onto. But what did the lab put in Homelander? There was never a be good. Nobody in that building cared if Homelander was good or bad. They just cared if he was marketable and controllable. So the only thing they trained him into was don't let them see the real you. And that sounds similar to a conscience. It is the opposite of one though. A conscience says behave, because behaving is right. It's based on ethics. What they gave Homelander says hide, because being exposed is death. One of those makes you judge yourself. The other one just makes you perform. They gave him the watching with nothing good underneath it. So when the cameras hit him, they don't correct him. There's nothing in there to correct. Instead, the attention just feeds the one thing he does have, which is a bottomless need to be loved. The same spotlight that made Starlight smaller makes Homelander hungrier. He doesn't feel watched like a prisoner anymore. He feels watched like a star. He looks straight into the lens that's supposed to be a cage to him and asks, "Do you love me yet?"
Good job, Kylie. You're doing amazing, sweetie.
And watch what he actually keeps track of. Not right and wrong. He genuinely cannot see right and wrong. He tracks approval ratings. He just tracks a number. His whole mood rides on it. It's the only mirror he's ever had. And a man raised by cameras will do anything for a mirror, my friends. So now we've got our answer down to a broken machine. The panopticon didn't fail by accident. It basically revealed its own secret. It only ever worked on people who already had a conscience to exploit. Pointed at someone who's empty, and it doesn't make a good Samaritan. It makes a monster who craves attention. But that leaves a much bigger hole hanging. And this is the one that took me the longest to think about. If Vought is watching Homelander commit murder on camera and doing nothing to correct him, then what are those cameras exactly for? What's the whole point of watching Homelander? Think about it. Surveillance is expensive. You don't run the most sophisticated watching operation on Earth on a man you have zero intention of fixing. That's insane. That's like, I don't know, installing security cameras and then watching a robbery and having fun, you know? So the watching has a purpose. You just have to figure out what it is. And the answer is right there in front of us. You just have to notice what Vought actually reacts to. Homelander lasers through a protester. What does Vought do? They don't panic about the protester. They don't have a moral crisis. They pull up the polling. They look at numbers. They check how that action played. They watch his approval number move, whether up or down. That's what the cameras are for. Not to catch him being bad. The cameras are there to measure him. And the second I understood that, I realized we're no longer in Foucault territory anymore. Foucault's machine wanted to fix you, right? It cares about your soul, technically. It's creepy, but it cares, you know. Vought does not care if Homelander is fixed. Vought only wants to know his number. That is a different machine. Deleuze enters the scene. And in 1990, he writes this tiny essay, basically saying, "Oh, Michel Foucault? Cool. Your world is ending. Something new is replacing it."
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
He says the old world worked through walls. You go into the school, it shapes you. It spits you out into the factory, which reshapes you, and then spits you out into retirement, and that shapes you in its own way. There are separate boxes, one after another, and every box, however grim, was at least trying to make you into something. A worker, a citizen, it had a plan for you, whether it was good or bad. The new world, he says, has no walls. There's no endpoint to school and moving on. You're just tracked continuously, forever. There's no box you graduate from because you never leave. Deleuze says it doesn't want your soul anymore. Your soul is too much work. It just wants you for your numbers. You basically are a digit in that world. And he coins this word. He says you stop being an individual. You become a dividual, divided up, chopped into mere data. Your credit score, your engagement rate, your approval rating, the amount of likes you get. The system doesn't deal with you anymore. You are too complicated and too cheap to bother with. There's no profit. It deals with your numbers, and it lets the actual human do whatever they want as long as the numbers stay good. Now go back to Vought, because this is exactly them, and the show flat out tells you. Stan Edgar, the CEO, says it to Homelander's face. I think there's a quote where he says, like, "You think we're a superhero company, but we're not. We're actually a pharmaceutical company. The heroes are a product line." Which means Vought was never running a panopticon in the first place. A panopticon tries to make people good in its own way. Vought has no interest in good or bad. Vought runs the newer machine, the control machine. The cameras were never there to fix the 7. They were there to measure them, to turn them into these data and numbers that Vought can sell to people. And that finally explains the thing that broke the first reading. How can they watch him constantly and he's still a monster? Well, under the old machine, that makes no sense whatsoever. Under this one, it's not a bug anymore. It's the product working exactly as it was designed. Nobody was ever trying to make Homelander good. They were just tracking whether Homelander sells to the Americans or not. He can murder someone in daylight, and as long as the number holds up, the machine is happy. And when that number drops, listen to what they say. Nobody ever says Homelander is wrong or something Homelander did was wrong. They always say, oh, that's a PR problem. You know, that's off-brand. And that is a problem with the numbers. Foucault's machine wanted you as a changed person. This machine just wants to count you. Quick thing now, because it explains why the good guys keep losing this battle. Butcher's whole plan always is expose them, get that footage, leak the truth, show the world what Homelander really is. And that's the right move, but against the old machine. A machine that runs on hiding things will definitely die when you expose it. But throw the truth at the new machine and watch what happens. The scandal just becomes its own form of content. It trends, it gets a hashtag, a hot take, a documentary on Vought's own streaming services, or that Nazi lady, I forgot her name. But yeah, the only thing you're looking for is attention. Butcher keeps trying to break the glass and he keeps losing because the glass was never the cage. The cage is that the machine turns everything into a singular number that is a commodity. And this would not be the ending you all expect. I can't just sit here and say, in the digital age, we've all become the guards of our own prison, and, a bunch of deep bullshit quotes for you. But that's wrong, because that ending still assumes defeat is trying to make you good. If I say that there's a prison, that you're policing yourself into being a better person, no matter what the better person is, you're trying to be something better. Watch what actually gets rewarded online though. Not being good, performing. Vulnerability does numbers, so people just perform vulnerability. You get chopped into a individual. Your follower count, your best angle, your engagement rate. Heck, even this channel. I look at CTR and I look at engagements. Bentham's guard at least had to picture you as a person worth fixing. The algorithm has never once pictured you. It reads your number. That is it. So we didn't get trapped in the panopticon, my friends. We did something weirder. We looked at the old machine, the one that at least pretended it wanted us to be better, and we found it slow and we upgraded. We skipped the whole make you good part. We went straight to the number, a number going up on a chart. And that makes Homelander something other than a villain. He figured that out before any of us, that once nobody's checking if you're good, once they only count you as a number, there's only one sin left in the universe. A bad review. So what do you do about it? And I don't just diagnose you and leave. You can't log off. That door is closed. Deleuze's whole point is that there's no outside anymore. No wall to hide behind. So hiding was never the answer. The answer is the one thing Homelander can't do. And the one thing that Starlight bleeds for, the whole show. You keep something the number can't touch. You have a definition of good that isn't just a bunch of numbers. You keep a version of yourself that you'd still respect with the cameras off. Because here's the loophole in Foucault's grimace idea. If the voice in your head really does get installed by someone else, it matters enormously who you let install that voice. Vought or the feed or yourself. Same tower, same eye, same total permanent monetized attention on both of them. One of them keeps the self as a number. The other one becomes the number. Oh, and one last thing, Jeremy Bentham, you know, the guy who invented the panopticon and the all-seeing tower and everything, he died in 1832 and he had his whole body preserved. And it's literally in a glass case right now. Like his real skeleton in his own clothes, it's still there. And cool fact, when they were taxidermying him, they fucked up the job so bad on his head that they had to throw it out and then they made a head out of wax. Nevertheless though, his body is still there for everyone to go and see. The man who designed the perfect way to watch everyone has spent almost 200 years as a thing in a case. Visible, silent, never able to tell who's looking while everyone looks at him. The machine always comes for the guy who built it first. Vought should have read the fine print, and it didn't. And that's the channel, everybody. I take the reading everyone has and I check it to see if it survives the actual show or not. Invisible Prison didn't survive. What's underneath is hell of worse. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.